Hey guys, so you just saw a ton of great videos and it's a little difficult for me to follow that, and I'm about to make it even more difficult on myself by starting with a pop quiz. But I have a feeling that you guys are gonna be really good at this one. So by a show of hands, how many of you head into work every day and feel like you have every resource at your disposal to do the job that you know you can do? Really? Awesome, me neither. So we never have enough time. And we spend a lot of time talking about how we don't have enough time, or we don't have enough technology, we don't have the resources we need, we don't have the people. And sometimes it justifies bad behavior. We use it as an opportunity to give ourselves a little pass. Maybe it's a reason that we're behind the times of some of our competitors. But I was at a conference just a couple weeks ago, and I heard Tom Grueller, who was a CMO at Microsoft, and he said, winning as a marketer today takes both art and science. And I know we've got one of those things down. So I challenge the notion that we don't have the resources we need. Charlotte's a banking town, so I'm around a lot of banking marketers all the time, and they make me a little jealous with their giant budgets. But then I think about them sitting around a table trying to think about how to make investment banking sexy. And I know that in some ways I have it a little better. We have a lot of really cool assets at our disposal as arts marketers. We have a really engaging product. People come to us to feel. They come to us to have an experience outside of their daily lives. And it's really hard for any other brand to create that kind of thing, but we do that all the time. We also have really avid fans. Those experiences create people who want to engage with us and who want to be with us. When was the last time you wanted to go to your bank? But people want to come to our theaters, they want to come to our museums every day. And we have really cool people in our organizations. The artists that we work with are such an asset. You know, we can use them in our everyday marketing skills just like we would any other member of our team. So I think when I'm planning my content, I think about building my team. So I was a journalist. That's how I was born into my career. And I think about sources when I'm creating stories. And I do the same thing when I'm creating content. So for my content team, I think about how to increase the number of humans with me. And then I use technology. I use our audiences and our influencers and our artists. And the first little group that we'll talk about is my team. So I'm with Charlotte Ballet. We're a $7 million organization based in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina. We have 7 performances a year. So we do really beautiful performances like Nutcracker and Storybook ballets. But then we also present new upcoming choreographers, new work, things that are really modern. And as the Associate Marketing Director, I've been with the organization for 6 years. And in 2011, we were a team of 3 people. Unfortunately, Mario Lopez wasn't on our team. But the rest of us, we were a little team of 3. And now, we're a team of 6. So we grew in just those few years to double the number of folks that we originally had. And we did that by really bringing our executive director and our board on board with us. We stopped assuming that they knew intrinsically all the things that we know as marketers. And we kind of had to take a step back and market the marketing team. And that can be a really hard thing to do. So we looked at things from a total base level and created a document that literally defines content marketing, that all of them can kind of start talking the same language that we do. And then we showed a lot of plans, and then I think the hardest thing we did was take a step back after each of our performances and measure the ROI and the success of the campaigns, and then show that. We have also, along the way, taken a lot of risks and asked for forgiveness. We sort of removed every barrier that we can for ourselves. We've changed the way that we spend money. We've started using a lot more casual content, and that can be really scary. And sometimes you just have to go out there and do it and hope that it flies and it's gonna work out for you. And we've really created our own voice. And we speak in our content like we would speak every day and how we would speak to audience members in person. And October 1st, we launched our Nutcracker campaign, and that was really early for us. So we had to think a lot about how to make it not really scary for people to start thinking about Christmas trees and ornaments and presents and their family coming over in October. No one wants that. So we approached it with a little bit of humor. And we started taking the drama that you experience on stage at Nutcracker and pairing that with the drama that you experience over the holidays. So we created a few of these posts. When you dance so hard at the holiday office party that you split your pants. Now that's holiday drama. But don't worry, we'll take care of all the dancing at Nutcracker. And we kind of opened ourselves up a little bit because humor and ballet are not something that people often put together, and we got some really interesting responses. That's my new friend, Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. No one has ever made this joke to us before. So we just started tongue-in-cheek responding to everyone who wanted to start this with us. And as it happens on the internet sometimes, some of the responses were even better than the original content we created. And creating this content takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of energy, but we really believe in the power of digital marketing. Last year, we had a brand new performance of Nutcracker. All new sets, all new costumes, which was a bit of a challenge because then I had no assets. But we decided it was a huge opportunity for us to invest in digital. So we doubled our spend from the year before. We invested really heavily, and we took away from a lot of the traditional media that we had been doing. We used Facebook, Instagram, display, YouTube, and paid search with capacity. And these are a few of our results. With a spend of about $54,000, we netted almost $750,000 with about a 1,300% ROI. And 25% of the overall amount that we made came from Facebook. That was the purchase point, and it was 30% of our revenue. Now, if you don't have a huge team yet, and it takes a few years to build, I've been able to use some tools and technology to kind of help myself along the way. And it all started here. This is Millie. I can't believe she's on this big of a screen. She would die right now. She thinks a lot of herself. But she's extremely cute, which is how she's made it through life this far. And this is my actual content plan that I came home to work on in the comfort of my own home and sit down and write and like be on my couch. And I got up and I walked away and I came back to this. I'm like, there has to be a better way. Enter to Pulse. The Pulse is our content management system that we use internally with our team. It really allows us to collaborate on scheduling and all the assets that we have. You'll see all the things that we have going on throughout the week connected to the nice, pretty face of the owner, their due date, and they can also update their status in here. You can share URLs, share files. It's kind of a good place for us to put everything together, and it really keeps us organized. This is also where we collaborate with Capacity and with our development team on emails. I also use the PlayBuzz, and this is kind of my go-to for when I want to create BuzzFeed-style content on my Charlotte Ballet budget. So I was telling you guys about our new Nutcracker last year. We had to get a little creative with assets. So PlayBuzz allows you to create different content pieces like quizzes or matching games, and we used it to create this quiz here. Which Nutcracker character are you? Are you a spunky fairy? Are you a little bit of a mischievous mouse king? It actually was hosted on our website so that we just embedded it straight in there and people were able to play that along with us. And I bet a lot of you are already using Canva, but if you aren't, I will talk to you about it at length anytime you want. We have a freelance designer, and she's not in our office, and we're not her only client. So Canva really allows us to fill in the gaps when she's not able to help us out with things. It allows us to create really beautiful graphics, and it has this fantastic feature called Magic Resize. So if I created this Instagram size square and then wanted to be able to use it on Facebook or on our website, I can use the Magic Resize button, and it'll automatically make sure the specs are exactly what I need. And this is a free tool, but I use the paid version. I think it's like $12 a month, and you can upload all of your brand pieces in here, all of your colors, logos, photos, and it makes it really easy to create some things like day of that you need for social media. And I am also not afraid to use stock imagery. I have a ton of really gorgeous photos of dancers and performances, but when I want to start talking about the experiences that people have with us, I don't have those photos. We don't go in our theater and take pictures of our patrons. So I often pull photos like this from iStock. I think 3 of them are like $33, and they last me quite a while, and I'm really able to talk more about the experience that someone is having, and you didn't have to go through all the trouble of creating this little guy yourself. The look on a child's face when their favorite fairy tale comes to life before their eyes, priceless. Activate your imagination at Sleeping Beauty. We have a videographer on staff, and he is amazing and has really changed the way that we're able to create content. But his time is also really limited, and his projects are limited. So I use Giphy. I've really been wanting to use this for a long time to get the little butt slap action, and I've been wanting to do it for about 2 years, but this was especially for you guys. So I'll take his videos, put them into Giphy, and choose different segments to be able to reuse them. So when we announced that our single tickets were on sale, it wasn't a super boring post that was all text. We used a really excited dancer. And then when we had a brand new Wuthering Heights, instead of introducing the characters by just having a static headshot image of our dancers, we used a video that we already had to show some movement and some emotion in the character introductions. And then outside of my own team, I often use our audience and our influencers to sort of help me out as additional people. And influencers we define as people within our community that have a really big share of voice. So maybe they're bloggers, they're Instagrammers, or they're traditional media. So with our audience, we start out by really asking them to connect with us, whether it's putting signage in the theater, asking them in the playbill, making sure that they know that we want them to share. And then we connect back with them. We don't own our own theater, so a lot of times people are tagging the theater that we're in, and they're not tagging us. So we're using geotags and hashtags to find the content that they're creating, even though they haven't tagged us, and then we're going back and thanking them. We reward them for doing that behavior by directly saying thank you or just by sharing their content. And we create Instagrammable moments. We try to manufacture these within our theater, whether it's by these really cool step and repeats, allowing them to take pictures with our performers. I know earlier Colleen was talking about folks being 13 times more likely to purchase on a recommendation for a friend. And we can't create that content ourselves, but we can definitely steward that in the things that we do at the theater. And then I reuse the content as my own when I like it. So again, I wanted to talk about the experience of a date night at Nutcracker. I do not have a picture of a pretty couple. Enter into my life, Aaron and Jose. And I could not have paid and set up a photo any more perfect than their date night. So I sent her a little message on Instagram, asked her if she would mind if I used it in some advertising, offered her a couple tickets to a follow-up show, and I had this piece of content. And it became a blog called Planning Your Knockout Nutcracker Date Night that then translated into some paid posts. And last year with our new Nutcracker, we really engaged with influencers in a way that we never had before by inviting them into our final dress rehearsal. So we asked them to join us. We gave them access to our artists, to the choreographers, to all of the designers. They could interview them or just chat with them as much as they wanted. They had free reign of the whole theater, and they could take video and photos as they pleased. And I felt like the next day, if you were on social media in Charlotte, you were going to be bombarded by Nutcracker, not by me, but by the people that you trust and by the people that you interact with every day. And we even use their content as our own. This is the kind of thing that I wish I could convey on my own. Like, your Christmas isn't complete without taking your girlfriend to Nutcracker. You're doing it wrong. That's what I want to say. But Aly and Lauren, who have the podcast Margarita Confessionals, it's awesome. You should check it out. All about dating in the Queen City. They said it for me. So I took that, and not only did I retweet it, but I created a blog with it. It went in emails on our performance page. We really used that as a piece of our own content. And I think probably the most important thing that I've done for myself as a marketer is to engage our artists. We really feel like, as the marketing team, that we're only the stewards of our brand, but our artists are really our identity. Who they are is who we are, and we've started embracing their content and using it as ours. And that's true authenticity, and our fans know that. And I'd formalize that. The first thing I did was tell them what I wanted. We talked about how we could work together to use the content that they were already creating, and then I formalized that. I allowed them to tell me how they wanted to interact. So if somebody was really private and they're really not on social media, they can say so. Or if they want to be the next Misty Copeland, they can do that as well and really interact with us pretty heavily. And I started building relationships with them, going into the studio, talking to them about their day, making sure that they knew that I was invested in them. And I just asked them for what I needed. They're not marketers. They don't intrinsically know what it is that I need. But if I talk to them and I ask them to do things for me, they are so receptive. And then I always share results with them to make them part of the process. So last year when we had such a success with Nutcracker, one of the first groups that I emailed about it were the dancers, to bring them into that success and make them a part of it. And this really allows me as a content creator to take a step back and breathe. We're creating so much to be pushed out paid. We're creating so much blogs. It takes so much time. But this is so simple for me to just go ahead and reuse. And it allows me to be really nimble. When the Panthers were in the Super Bowl, I didn't have time to stop and organize something, but they did. This was something they did on their own, and I was able to push that right out. This is our most popular Instagram post. 55,000 views. I didn't make this. Sarah did. She just popped up her phone in the dressing room, and organizing this would have taken an inordinate amount of time for us, but she just did it on her own, and I reposted it, and it's been the most popular thing we've ever put on Instagram. And then I'd take their content, and I reuse it a lot. So around Sleeping Beauty, we had 3 ladies who were playing the role of Aurora, and they all started posting these really cool pictures and having these great stories about how they were going to be in the show. So we had Alessandra, who is our super mom, who the morning of threw a birthday party for her son and then came to play Aurora later that evening. It was Sarah's very first time dancing in this role, and Jamie, it was her first time that her daughter was going to get to see her. So we just took these photos from their Instagram accounts, paired them with a little text to tell the story, and some audience feedback, and that was a piece for us. So looking back on a few of the takeaways on building your overall team, you start internally and build the humans that you're with. Really show your results to your staff and take risks along the way. Then use technology and tools to fill in the gaps when you don't have people there to help you do it. Make sure to ask your audiences and your influencers to help you out. Connect with them and then reward them for the behavior that you want to see. And engage those artists, those cool people who are in our buildings. You know, build relationships with them, collaborate, ask them for what you need, and then share the results and make them part of your success. And I want to end by showing you a video that I feel like really sums up the way that we put all this together. We were able to grow our team with an in-house videographer, and we really built relationships with our dancers to be able to do some cool things. And when the Panthers were playing so well, I think you guys might know Cam Newton and the dab. It was a bit of a big deal in Charlotte. We were all about the dab. So we imagined what it would look like if ballerinas did Cam Newton's end zone dances. Thank you guys so much. Thanks. So I hope that you'll all help me welcome Lauren Fitzgerald from the new 42nd Street.
Hi, everyone. Oh, that's good. How are you? Let's keep it going. I chose that song. I love that song because it's storytelling without words. Hello, how is everyone? That was me that you saw just there. I'm here to talk to you today about how to make your organization a storytelling machine. I work at the new 42nd Street. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it so you have some context going in here. This is 42nd Street in 1979. Rolling Stone called it the sleaziest block in America. And this is 42nd Street today. And the organization that I work for, the new 42nd Street, was founded by New York City and State to revitalize the 7 historic theaters on the block. We made our own mission in 2013, and that mission is to make performing arts, extraordinary performing arts, and cultural engagement part of everyone's life. There are 2 theaters on this block that we operate our projects out of. So in the former Selwyn office building is the new 42nd Street Studios. And the new 42nd Street Studios is a catalyst for new artistic work. It's a performing arts complex and rehearsal studio. Since it opened in 2000, over 400 theater, dance, and opera companies have rehearsed there, and over 800 Broadway shows have been birthed in that building. The elevator is like the most amazing place to be in New York City. Also in that building is the Duke on 42nd Street, which is a black box theater rented by nonprofit and commercial arts companies, which offers a unique opportunity for smaller organizations to perform on the famed 42nd Street. So companies such as Playwrights Realm, Steppenwolf, Primary Stages, the Royal Court Theater have all performed at the Duke on 42nd Street. What I'm going to be talking about mostly today is the New Victory Theater, which, fun fact, in the 70s, the New Victory Theater was the only XXX porn house on 42nd Street. So very, very logical that now it is New York's first and only theater for kids and families. There are a lot of really bad jokes I'm going to spare you that we use around the office about that transition. The New Victory is now a standard bearer for quality performing arts, arts engagement, and arts education in the United States. We perform a diverse season of theater, dance, circus, puppetry from all around the world at affordable prices. And in addition to our public performances, we serve an additional 40,000 kids per year through our school partnership program, which means that we serve more kids in more grades with more performing arts than any other cultural institution in New York City, which we're really, really proud of. And something that I learned being at the New Victory, which I didn't know previously, is how hungry kids are to know about what it is they're seeing on stage. So this is really logical, right? Like, think about a 6-year-old who you know, and think about the number of questions that a 6-year-old asks. They want to know all of this about the show that they're seeing. So on days where we're really feeling ourselves, we think of ourselves as saving the future of American theater. And there's a little bit of truth in it, because we are cultivating the audiences of tomorrow. And we think it's part of our jobs to make sure that we're feeding that hunger, that we're cultivating their curiosity, and we're making them the better theater goers of tomorrow. So feeding them content is a first step in that. This is why I do my job, is that guy. A trip to the New Victory is very often a kid's first time in a theater, and we take this responsibility very, very seriously. We want them to come back. We take kids very seriously. The shows that we present to them are challenging, sophisticated. The idea of the New Victory is that it's not kiddie theater. You are meant to be able to go and take the 6-year-old and have just as good a time as the 6-year-old does. If we don't like the work as grown-ups, we don't present it to you on stage. In my role, I lead a team of marketers and content creators who design and produce media for all departments of the organization. So the artistic programming department of the New Victory, but also the 2 divisions of our education department. We have a school engagement division and a public engagement division. It is important to understand that we are a presenting house. So we are working with assets that are given to us from the artists who are visiting us. And sometimes they have great big budgets. They're very professional. They've been around a long time. This is a photo of a show from the Cola Marionette Company from Italy. We were delivered this, and we're like, hooray, great day. This is going to be not so hard to do. This is an actual photograph I was sent from a company who shall remain unnamed, along with about 4 others that look just like it, in order to create a campaign. And our job is to figure out how that and that go together, so that you understand that all of that is being presented at the New Victory and it makes sense to you. I've been in my role since 2007, but we made this video in 2013, which I think really started to unlock content that works for us. I'm going to show you a little bit of it.
Kids imagine more things because of the age. When people have to go to work with no recess, and you can enjoy life better, and you get recess at school. Real. Something real. Because you can really see it in action. Well, real life things actually might happen. See the characters move. What is happening? What's going on? It's just imaginary. Puppets are people. People are making puppets look like because they're in the story and they're telling the story. Controlled by people. What's that? If there was like a story in a castle, a big castle, do you think a kid can be in that story? Really? What do you know about puppets? Well, a kid could only be in that story if he's acting a puppet. Who's in that story? Dancing. Dancing is exercising your movement.
Okay. There's more to that video. I hope you will watch it. Ian, I've been obsessed with for years and years. We continually use him in our campaigns because 5 years later, he's still saying extraordinary things. Why was this video important to us? So I told you we take our jobs very seriously. Saving the future of American theater is a serious job. But this was the first time that we actually got silly. We allowed kids to take this center stage, tell the narrative. Some of what they say is actually more sophisticated and challenging than what it is that we were doing in our semi-serious marketing beforehand. And who was here the other day for the Plaka Cohen rollout? A couple of people. So the other day here, La Plaka Cohen rolled out their culture track findings, which I would encourage everybody to read, which are about cultural attitudes. And they do this study annually. And this year, not surprisingly, but importantly, they talked about in this socio-political climate, what is it that people are looking for in order to make meaning with their cultural experiences? And they talked about wanting things that offered perspective, reduced stress, and were fun. We're trying to keep that in mind. Theater and families are fun. So this was the first time that I think we expressed that in an important way. That takes me back to the mission of the new 42nd Street, to make extraordinary performing arts and cultural engagement part of everyone's life. So we did our strategic plan around the same time that we made that video. And it was the first time that the word engagement showed up in our mission. And this was really critical for the marketing department, communications departments. It was the first time that I understood that my role was not just as a service department. I wasn't just there to sell tickets. It's what I was doing was actually critical to the mission of the organization. It was a real important shift for us going forward and inspired us to do our work, which was really good because we make so much content. For every show at the New Victory, we do 15 to 17 shows a year. And this is a sample of what it is, significant content that we create for pretty much every show. We're promoting this on Facebook, sometimes on Instagram. This list is from a show called Mr. Popper's Penguins. It was this lovely puppet-filled musical out of London from a company called Pins and Needles. It is important to understand as we're going through this that our Facebook spend was only a little under $2,000. So this is not a huge spend for the kind of engagement that we got. So that brings me to 3 lessons, mostly starring penguins. You're welcome. Lesson number 1, let the artist do a little bit of the work for you. So we can't do all of this alone. Amanda just touched on this a little bit. We start content planning at the same time that we do season planning, which sometimes can be a year to a year and a half before a company actually shows up at the New Victory Theater. And we build it into the contracting process because that's when you have managers and agents' attention. We ask them to send us video footage saying hi to New York audiences, letting them in a little bit on what their process is like, a little get to know you sort of video. So this is what the post looked like for Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Hi, I'm Nick Barnes, and I'm the puppet designer for Mr. Popper's Penguins. This is Cook. He's our star penguin in the show. He's operated by moving the puppet around. He's got a handle on the back, and you can make his wings flap with that. And he's got a handle on the back of his head, so it can make his beak move. And he's got wheels, so he can zoom across the stage.
So this is Luke Bateman, the composer of the show. So this is Luke Bateman.
The fun part of this show is writing for not just the 4 fantastic performers that we've got, but for the 10 penguins, which kind of steal the show.
Of which this is one.
This is one of the baby ones.
So a little something about this video. When this came in, I was driven somewhat nuts by it. I am a perfectionist, as I would guess just about everyone in this room. I was driven nuts by the fact that you actually can't see the wheels on the penguin. that it was low res, like all of it. We encourage shooting on an iPhone because that's easy and we know we'll get content back from it, but it made me insane. And my point with this is, it doesn't matter. We're probably the only people who are really driven insane by this. We got 13 shares on this video, and it was in our campaign, it performed better than a bunch of stuff that we had spent a whole lot of time on obsessing about. People really want to feel like they're part of the artistic process, like they have a little bit of insight. We know this, we are told this all the time. And some of that requires a little bit of letting go on our parts. Number 2, other people in your organization likely can do that thing better than you. So as theater marketing people, I think I can speak for us when I say that we try to do everything. We're triple threats, right? We're like left-brained and right-brained, and we pride ourselves on all of these things. It's important every once in a while to take a look around your organization and figure out who could be doing something better than you're doing it. So my example in this case is that we know that in-theater interviews with kids work really, really well for us in terms of sales and engagement. And I spent years, I know most of you have, especially if you're over maybe 40, that when like video was starting to be a thing, where I went in and I did the interviews with the kids, I cut the interviews with the kids, I picked out music I did all of the things. And some of the videos with the kids turned out, some of them were just them giggling at me, because the thing is, I don't actually know how to talk to kids. It took repeated attempts at it before I got this memo to myself. And the thing is, I work with this core of teaching artists who work with kids every single day in schools, who create curriculum for them, who are in dialogue with them. And a couple of years ago, we started hiring them to go into the theater and do these interviews. So this is what a kid interview looks like for Mr. Popper's Penguins.
The box opened up and the penguin opened. There was a bunch of penguins. Tiny penguins, giant penguins, and teeny penguins. It made me feel energetic and happy. It was so funny.
We had a blast.
This worked out really well for us. We got 48 shares on this video. I wouldn't have known to ask kids to dance like penguins. Like, that's just not a language that I speak. Our education department does. Next point here, number 2A. And I'm sure that there are young people in this room. I know there are. I've seen you. I'm fascinated by you. You know music that we like don't. And I'm pretty hip when it comes to this stuff, but our audiences are age 6 months, and I'm really not kidding. There is work at the New Victory for 6-month-olds to 16 years old, which means that our parents are younger than the average theater age, which means that us being relevant and feeling hip, is that even a word that we're supposed to use anymore, is really important for us. So instead of me picking out the music, I asked the youngest people in my office what it is that they're listening to. And here's what started to happen, is that not only did they know the music, they actually knew the musicians. So I was able to start contacting musicians directly and asking them for permission in exchange for social media mentions. These artists were thrilled to do this. We got really good content. It was a super win-win. Number 3, it will work out better if you work towards your mission together. So I take a lot of pride in my work. I pride myself on being an idea person. And it took me a couple of years at the New Victory to get over my ego and decide that there were other people who had really, really good ideas in there. I'm not sure if you can relate to this. I encourage you to dig deep to think about this. So as I mentioned, we have great, great strength in our education departments at the New Victory. The curriculum development that we do for schools is really unparalleled in the country. So the question was, how to take what they were doing for schools and make it less academic and appropriate for public audiences to drive engagement. And from that, New Victory family activities were born. And they are activities that are hosted on our blog. They are designed for families to do together, and they are inspired by the show. And we promote them on Facebook, sometimes Instagram, and also Pinterest, which is like this brave new world for us that we're trying to figure out. This is what a little video looks like on Facebook in order to introduce family activity. Our apprentices create these. We know that video works better for us than static images, so even just that little bit of action creates something on our Facebook wall that people click on. And there's a lovely little comment. Host a penguin party. You're obsessed. The next thing we have here is what I'm going to call New Victory Family Activities 2.0, which is that a couple of years ago, we added some staff to our public engagement department, and we decided to move family activities to video to see if we could do it a little bit differently. And this is what a video activity for Mr. Popper's Penguins looked like. So there are more moves. There are more moves than this. I'm not going to do them for you today. But what was really amazing about this is not only did we use this as online content, but we had video screens in the lower lobby of the theater, so families could do the bobble waddle and their other moves together. And this resulted in what is my favorite Facebook comment of all time, in which Rachel Hirsch-Teller somehow made the connection between the activity that we had done at a street fair and this. She also used our hashtag is love of theater. She actually sort of repeated that back to us. This was a really good day for us when this happened, with 30 shares on this. Which then brings me to what I think we're going to call Family Activities X. Like the iPhone skipped 9, we're just going to skip all of them because this is a really big deal for us. So in December of this year, we will open at the New Victory Theater the renovated Jack and Lou Rudin lobby. And on the walls of the new lobby are huge screens in which there will be engagement activities that are programmed for every show. The public engagement department invents these activities with a team of teaching artists, and then my department designs and produces them. And I'm going to show you a sneak peek. This is world premiere. And this is a draft, so we're going to forgive the draft nature of this. We have a holiday show coming up when we open the lobby, the illusionist called Jason Bishop, and his show Believe in Magic. So all of the activities downstairs are magic themed. So there's no sound to these, but this will be on a big screen right in the center of the room, and these props will be there for the kids to play with. And the thing that's a real bonus for us in this is that the young people who star in these videos are part of a 3-year job training program at the New Victory, in which they're doing professional development. So these are people who are familiar to our audiences. When they come to the New Victory, they know the ushers. This is who they want to say hi to. So not only are we tying that together for people, we're also teaching these young people how to do content creation with us. In order to figure out how they do it, you have to come to the theater. I'm not revealing this trick to you today. To take this all back around, collaborating with the education department might actually afford me the opportunity to fundraise for engagement programs. I never dreamed that I would be able to do this. What we're doing in the theater is really forward-thinking and I think pioneering in terms of family engagement there. And we're going to start taking this content and we're going to test it on our social platforms and promote it and see how it does on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. So the collaboration there is more than I ever could have dreamed for. So I encourage you to all think about who you can collaborate with in your organization. Up front, it's going to feel a whole lot more complicated, but I promise you there will be amazing results. Take your education director to lunch, take your development director to lunch, and working together, we got this. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks, that's nice. I hope you will join me in welcoming Aly Michaud from Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park.
I love Moana. Hi, everybody. As she said, my name is Aly Michaud. I'm from the Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, and I am the digital marketing manager there. That means I work on our email marketing, our social media, and our website. For a little context, the Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park is nestled in a beautiful park atop a hill in Mount Adams, overlooking the city of Cincinnati. We are a 2-time Tony Award-winning theater company. We are a professional regional theater that produces 11 productions each season. We have a budget of $11.9 million a season, a year, and we have 2 performance venues, a smaller 225-seat space and a larger 626-seat space. We also do educational performances that we take, as we call it, off the hill into the community, and we go to schools and community centers across the tri-state. I'd like to start today with a story about my morning commute. I have exactly 2 podcasts on my iPhone that I listen to each morning. One of them is Capacity Interactive CI to I, and the other is called The Minimalists. Now, at first glance, these 2 might seem a little opposing. Some mornings I'm listening to information about how to buy less, how to have less, how to live a life with less. And other mornings I'm listening to conversations about how to attract more audiences and how to bring in more sales. But what I've found listening to these 2 things every morning is that they're actually 2 sides of the exact same coin, and that they work very hard to strengthen one another. Basically, they're both about being a more informed, more intentional, either consumer or marketer. And the best way for me to show you how this all works together is to tell you a little bit more about how they talk about minimalism. The definition of minimalism is not to have nothing or to have 7 things, but to have only what adds value to your life, which means that it's going to look different on you than it does on you or you. It also means that if you're a scrapbooker, the goal is not to get rid of all your scrapbooking stuff. It's to let go of the stamp collection that's taking up space on the table where you could be scrapbooking. So that's part A, having only what adds value to your life. Part B is that once you've pared your life down to that, you want to be incredibly intentional about what you bring into your life that's new. And these 2 themes, adding value and intentionality, come into play with Capacity CI to I frequently, in ways such as talking about segmentation, customization, and being very, very intentional about who we're talking to, how often we're talking to them, why we're talking to them, and where we're talking to them. The other area where they cross over is this added value idea. So this exceptional interest in creating excellent content that adds value for our customers, that's a big highlight of Capacity Interactive CI to I. So, okay, how do you get content that adds value for your customers, right? So content can add value when it is intellectually stimulating, when it's funny. At least for me, a laugh in my newsfeed adds a lot of value to my day. When it's beautiful and interesting, when it's something that literally adds value. You can offer someone a discount on something or give something away. If you succeed at doing a number of these things all at once, then bonus points for you. If you succeed at none of these in a post, then you're just adding to the loud cacophony of noise that we were talking about before in our fish tanks this morning. So, armed with information each morning from these podcasts, I come into work pretty inspired, thinking about different ways that I can create content that is relevant, interesting, or funny, that makes what happens here on our stages relevant for people through their social media, here, here, or here. And when I succeed at making this connection for someone, that's when I call it social storytelling. Great, so big idea, right? Let's go ahead and step back. We're gonna pause, step back, and zoom in, and we'll start at the beginning, because the beginning is a very good place to start. Thank you. For us at the Playhouse, the beginning is actually many months in advance. We also start season planning in February for a season that occurs from September to June. Once we announce our season, our marketing department gets together and we read all of the scripts, and we come to a meeting to answer the question, why should people see this show? What comes out of that meeting is something called a communications plan, and it's made up of about 4 or 5 key messages that answer this question for every show. And those answers to that question, those are the stories that we're going to be telling online for the rest of the season. And having this meeting in advance gives you that idea very early on. After these key messages are solidified, we have a meeting. So we have a meeting between my boss, Kathy News, and our Capacity and Interactive consultants, Becky and Aly. We all talk about how we're going to weigh each production. Not all productions get the same budget, not all productions get the same length of a promoted campaign. And we come out of that meeting with a firm plan about at least the shell of how the season will look. Not that it's not subject to change once in a while. With that budget approved, I create what I call a shell calendar. This is literally an entrance of just what the campaign is called, so that I know how much content I'm going to be needing at any given time. So it's not the idea of what is the content, it's just how much do I need. While I'm doing this, I'm thinking about what current assets we have. What is already at our fingertips? Maybe we already have headshots, maybe we already have some pull quotes from when the show is done elsewhere, maybe we have access to the director and could get an interview. Then I'm also thinking about our expected assets. For every single show, we always have a trailer made. We have a video dress that's already scheduled at the beginning of the year. So I just know that's coming, and in my brain, I know that's content I have. Then we have another meeting. And I know we've all experienced this. Everyone's had a few of these, I'm sure. But what I want to emphasize is that, again, this meeting is nothing like this. I really need this meeting. This next meeting is our brainstorming session. And what we do during it is we come up with ideas about what desired assets we have. What do we want to get? We have this meeting about a month in advance of whatever campaign is coming, which if we have a show where we're doing the production on site, that's 2 months before the show starts. And that way, we're able to come up with ideas about things we want to collect during the production process with enough time to make sure they work with equity rules and coincide with the schedule appropriately. I also, during this time, am able to tell if we have too many backloaded ideas. So if all of our brainstorming ideas are going to be done in the last week of the show, I only have 2 slots that last week, and I can't use 7. So we need to prioritize and move from there. Once we have all these ideas, I move forward and I insert them into the schedule, and I come up with a pseudo plan. And this lets me assess whether we've done too much, not enough, do we need to go back to the drawing board, do we need to prioritize? Just so you know how this works for my brain, the purple is shaded when I've already drafted something, it's already in Facebook, it's ready to go. It's been approved by other people who are involved. Things in brackets are organic content, the content we're not paying to promote, but is also equally as important. And the yellow is my Mayday color when I have no idea for that day and I'm very scared and need to work on it. So from this point in the process, I am starting to draft posts. And it's important to note that I'm not doing this, I'm at step 1 for this show, and then I'll wait till I'm all the way through all the steps before I start the next show. As most of your organizations work, we have lots of shows that are all crossing over one another. So this is happening at stage 1, 3, 5, and 7 for different projects throughout the year. During the drafting process, I meet with Natalie. And Natalie is our content marketing manager. She would like me to note that is not a real cigarette. She has a film and writing background, and she is someone who works on content for our programs. We have a magazine that we send out, so she writes for that. She also works on our video. The reason that we work together at this point in the process is for 2 reasons. First, we create a lot of cross-channel content. Just because it appeared in your program or in your magazine or in your lobby doesn't mean it doesn't also belong online. So that way someone who comes and experiences something or reads something in your playbill can share it with their friends, or maybe someone's encountering it for the first time because they didn't actually read their playbill. So the other reason is that I firmly believe that social media is inherently social, so you should be social while you create it, right? It's like kind of a silly idea, but it's very basic. I think that if you think something's funny, it's always good to check to make sure someone else agrees. And it's great to have a good copy editor too. We all are susceptible to the occasional mistake. So when we're together, Natalie and I are talking about how not to waste the real estate Facebook offers. Facebook gives you a ton of control. Facebook lets you control your copy. They let you control the visual. They let you control any link copy in both of those areas. And they also let you control your actual links, which, as most of you know, does not have to be the same link as I'm highlighting here, does not have to be the same link as the picture takes you to. So it's your job to be as intentional as possible about how you use this control Facebook has given you. So moving forward, I want to talk about where ideas come from, and a lot of my colleagues have spoken about this already, so I'm going to breeze through this part. You can get great ideas from your staff. We have our multimedia designer, Sean Martin, and he prides himself on dad jokes. We were talking about Little Shop of Horrors, and he was like, ha, suddenly Seymour Theater. And we were like, wait, what? Stop, we're going to use that. So that worked out really well, and it didn't just sell tickets to Little Shop of Horrors, it sold subscriptions as well. You can get great ideas from artists, which we've already gone over quite a bit, but something I want to iterate is that sometimes, even if you don't have a video from them, they've said something in PR that's just perfect and you don't need to rewrite it. So all I did here was I copied a quote from one of our Second City artists who said, "See it 4 times, every night. See it every single night, Cincinnati. Come to the show." I totally butchered that, but you know what I mean. And it's really hard to read this way. But all I had to do was say, grab your first set of tickets today, and we moved on. You can also get great stuff from your audiences, and I do want to talk about our example here, even though we've talked about this a bit earlier, because we used a photo op for this show, and lots of people were submitting them using our hashtag and our Twitter handle, as well as on Facebook. And I'd collected so many that I knew I had to do something with them, so I decided to share them back into the world, and because they're sort of self-explanatory, all I had to say was, people are bad listeners. We said, don't feed the plants. And this was actually shared quite a lot, and what was really cool about this is that, as Colleen said this morning, it is 12.85 times more effective when other people talk about your product than when you do. So these people went from being satisfied customers to evangelists in a single click. You can also get great ideas from your publications. As I said before, just because they're in one area doesn't mean they shouldn't also be online. And finally, you can get good ideas from desperation. We had been doing a subscription campaign for, I'm gonna say, more than 3 months in a row, and we were still not into our actual season time yet. We didn't have any new assets coming in. So we went back to our subscription brochure and we looked at it, Natalie and I, and we said, what is the point of this subscription? And we honed in on the feature of free exchanges, which sound really exciting, right? You can just be like, get free exchanges, and people will buy them. No. So we thought through this and tried to turn it into a marketing 101 benefits not features scenario. And we took it back and said, subscribe today, rearrange your schedule tomorrow, which, as Colleen said this morning, scheduling is one of the top things that keep people from purchasing tickets. So it addressed a fear as well. I want to address situational awareness. I've been showing you a lot of punny examples, and that works for certain things, but it does not work for everything. We did Disgrace this year, and if I had used puns on that, that would have been in very poor taste. So you don't have to be punny, but you can always be clever. We did a show called Summerland, which was a world premiere, no name recognition. It was about the afterlife, so it wasn't the goofy kind of spooky, it was a very serious sort of spooky. And I ended up saying, reserve your seats for the seance, instead of saying, reserve your tickets, again, for the 50th time. And what's interesting about this is there's not a seance in the show, but that's not the point. It's more about evoking that feeling and having something intellectually stimulating for someone to read. And it's also important to remember that while images are sometimes fixed, copywriting is flexible, and there's a lot of room for creativity there. Back to minimalism. So I want to bring back this idea, not that I haven't been talking about intentionality this entire time, but this idea of doing more with less. This is another shared ideal between these two. We had a production of Shakespeare in Love this year, and we announced it back in February and had the same promotional photo to use for the entirety of the time up until the show in September. So we needed a refresh, and when the actors came into town in August, we were able to bring them in for a photo shoot. And this photo shoot was an hour long, and it took about a day to turn over the images, but we got a ton of equity out of this, so a way you can do a lot more with less. I want to teach you a little Facebook hack. So what I did with this, there were pictures of the two of them. It was the two leads of the show, and they were getting closer and further apart in these series of photos. And so I used Facebook's slideshow, and I re-uploaded the same images over and over again throughout the 10 they allow you to use, and it turned into a GIF. And Facebook thinks this is a video. So it works with the Facebook algorithm, and I didn't have to use any fancy creators. I did all of this in Facebook. And this did really well. This actually ended up outselling all but one of our videos that we actually collected and produced in-house that for this campaign. So knowing that, as that was happening, I used it on Instagram, I used it in a post by our local paper that didn't have a great image, I used it as our cover photo for 2 emails, and then at the end of the campaign, when we noticed that it had sold more than all of our video, I created the same GIF again, but this time with a last chance thing on the bottom. So while we're talking about doing more with less, let's talk about dark posts. So dark posts, if you don't know, are the posts that don't appear on your timeline. They're being shown specifically to a set of people that you've identified. And they can be really overwhelming, at least they were for me the first time we were recommended to try them. What's scary about it is that you have to create a ton of content just to reach everyone once. And the easiest way to address this overwhelming feeling is to do more with less. So come up with one idea and find small ways to tailor it. For us, we had this idea of thanking people for joining us for the last show they'd seen recently with an offer. And we were able to group them by the top 3 shows and then lump everybody else together into a generic one. And the only thing I changed in this was an image and one word. It said, join us for even more laughs this season, join us for even more humor, join us for even more adventure, and join us for even more great theater. Simple changes, more customized, more segmented. And what's great is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to do this. I also want to talk about an experiment we did this year. We went into our first development campaign on social media with promoted posts, and we decided to make it an awareness campaign. So the goal was to tell more of our audiences about the programs that our development department offers, because people didn't know. So we had a low ROI on this, but that was the intention, and we did learn a lot. We learned not only how to work with our development department, which has been an incredible step for us, not that they're not all lovely, they're perfectly lovely, but it was the first time we collaborated on something like this, and now they speak a little bit more of our language and we speak a little bit more of theirs. And the other thing we learned was that one of the programs that we would never have guessed would be the most popular had more key page views than any of the others. We have this thing where you can, it's called a red carpet package, and you can bring your clients and woo them the same way you would to a baseball game or a basketball game. You have drinks and you go see the show. So this actually had the most key page views and the most interest from this campaign. We are stepping into a new experiment with them this winter where we try our first digital fundraising campaign where we are going to attempt to get some ROI. Another place we've been experimenting is Instagram. What's really great about Instagram is you can play with your art even more there. The goal on Instagram is to fit in, which means that you can use popular hashtags, you can really get goofy with it. And what's interesting about this is that our insights show that we are talking specifically to people ages 25 to 34, which is a segment of our audience that we almost can never address directly. So it's been a very interesting couple of campaigns that we've done since our first one in Little Shop. And we are learning what the trends are and what works best and what doesn't. Okay, I feel like I should address organic content rather quickly. It is important because it's the landscape that promoted posts live on. And when someone sees a promoted post that you have and they feel like it adds value to them, they want to go to your page and see what else you have to say. So if you're not thoughtfully curating the entirety of your page, then you're losing out on an opportunity to speak to them coherently. It also helps you explore your brand. It's not very sales driven, or it doesn't have to be, and you can really be relevant in your newsfeed. This example behind me is from after Charlottesville. Our leadership had sent out a statement to everyone about how they felt about this situation, and they wanted us to share this online. And instead of just throwing all the copy they had sent us in an email into a post and hitting send or publish, we spent some extra time adding value to this very valuable piece of content. We put it to our graphic designer, and he created a way to make it look very much like a formal letter as a formal statement, and he got to highlight Dear Playhouse community. And it also let the Facebook tone of voice have a moment to say something as well. We got to say, all are welcome here, and then the statement got to be from them. This actually was shared 100 times, which is more than any of our promoted posts. So it's very important that you notice the strength of a piece of content, even if it's not something you're going to pay for. As Colleen touched on this morning, it is now a two-way conversation. So it is your job to respond to audiences in a timely manner with an appropriate tone. So if you have a customer who's like, this was the best thing I've ever seen and it changed my whole life, you can't respond, thank you, period. Wrong, right? You're not engaging with them, you're just a robot responding. So finding the right way to reply and respond to different types of posts is very important. And as she said, customer service is now public, so people see how quickly and how you respond to others. It also helps you analyze as you go. It gives you a strong sense of what kind of content is adding value for people or is not. And after this, when the campaign is over, Capacity sends us a sales report. And Kathy and I are able to meet with them to discuss our results and different observations that we have to help inform our future campaigns, not only in this coming season, but in the year after that. And now that I've taken you through my process, I'd like to bring things together with my 5 key takeaways. So first, schedule strategically. You don't have to do this the way that I do it, but thinking ahead and thinking about how many opportunities you have to tell what stories, what are your key messages, what are you trying to tell people to convince them to come see your show. Next, get a sounding board. It doesn't have to be someone official. You don't need another staff member if that's not something you have, but talk to someone. Social media is social, so be social while creating it. My third suggestion is to take 10, and I don't mean a break. I mean step back, look at what you've drafted. You've created something, right? Read it again. Where can you add more value? What can you make more succinct? Can you rearrange the photo album so that the best 4 images are really pulling someone's eye in so they want to click on more, as opposed to just accepting whichever order they show up in? Get close to your art. If you don't know why someone should see this show, you will not be able to convince them that they should. Go to rehearsal if you're allowed. Read the scripts. Walk through your museum. Do whatever you have to do to re-spark that thing that made you want to do your job in the first place. And finally, play with your art, but don't reinvent the wheel. And in the spirit of not reinventing the wheel, and because I enjoy adding value, I'm going to have a quick Oprah moment. So you get content, and you get content, and everybody gets content. What I mean by that is if you go to this link, I am giving everyone a cheat sheet for when you are stumped on starting a social media campaign. And on the one side, one column is going to be about content. So what is it? What are you promoting? And on the other side is how are you using it? So even if you've gotten through every piece of content you could possibly get, there are still more ways you have not yet tried to use that piece of content. And I threw in some helpful links too. So I want to say I hope this adds value to your life and that I challenge you all to be a little bit more minimalist with your marketing. Thank you so much. I believe my other presenters are going to be joining me, and we have a few minutes for questions. Hi. Anybody? Okay.
As far as photo rights go, for the images that your dancers are taking and then you're repurposing, are you getting the rights for them, or is it more of a casual, hey, can I use this? And they say, sure, go ahead.
It started out really casually, but I went through and formalized with what they're signing. When they come on to be a dancer with us, I have them sign a social media policy, and that's the opt-in or opt-out that I was mentioning. So when they're opting in, that's part of that process. Yeah.
To the point that the video that you receive, say, from your stakeholders has to be authentic and clear, but doesn't necessarily have to be at a really high level of production quality. What kind of pushback have you gotten on that? I've heard other things in from the field that have suggested that the quality of the video content that are produced by the marketing teams has to rise to the level of quality of the artwork put on the stage by the performers. There's a disconnect there. What do you think?
I think that's an interesting question. I I've been in dialogue a little bit about that with audience members. I think it depends on your audience, and I think it depends on your message. I struggle with it a little bit at the New Victory because, you know, you heard me say the words sophisticated and challenging. I didn't show you sophisticated and challenging today. We produce that as well. We try to do both versions of it, sort of like a little happy helping hands at home, and then the other one. And the stuff that we do that's not quite as professional generally performs better. So that's our answer.
And to build on that, I think you can do a lot of context with the words that you're using along with the piece. I feel like whenever I put something out there and I let people know that maybe a dancer created it, or that they kind of react a little bit differently, and they sort of understand the context that it's coming in.
Okay.
Like I noticed all three of you, like on posts where you're tracking organic and paid reach. You know, it's like 90+% paid all the time. I'm assuming that's fine with all three of you, right? That you're at 90+% paid versus organic. Yeah, that's true.
I'm great with it. As long as we're reaching the right people. We spend a lot of our time list building and loading into Facebook. We're trying to hit people who we've hit that same week. Like we've refined that system. So yeah, I don't mind.
Neither do I.
I think we have someone back there.
I have two questions. One's for Lauren. Did you have any trouble kind of getting into working with programming to make sure the assets language was in contracts? And the second question is for all three of you. Do you work with a kind of reading accessibility filter or anything for your content for grade level filtering of readability?
I did not hear the entirety of that. And did you guys?
I heard the second half. If you would ask the first question again, please.
First question's for Lauren, and it's, did you have trouble with your programming folks kind of building that assets language into contracts?
It's not, clarification, it's not built into contracts, it's done at the same time as contracts, which is really important actually. Our programming staff is really wonderfully collaborative and generous with us, but it's the timing that's the thing. Because I can get into a dialogue where I can say, hey, I know your contract's still outstanding, let's address this at the same time. So I don't know that I entirely believe in building it in. I'm an artist advocate, and if somebody really, really doesn't want to do it, then the answer is you don't do it.
And the second question? Sorry.
That's okay. So I've been urged to use a readability filter by grade levels. Anybody else in here ever had to do that or wanted to do that? So you run your copy through this readability filter, and it tells you what average grade level the content's in. I'm getting blank looks. I'm so happy. Thank you.
I have not heard of that, but it sounds very interesting, and I'd be interested to talk more about it.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but I do definitely try and make sure that the content is more conversational and more the way that people are speaking on social media.
Okay. Sorry, we're going to hand you the mic. Say it one more time. It's okay.
Hello. Hi. Would you talk about Pinterest and how you're using it? I know you brought it up a couple times.
Yeah. We are not using it enough yet. But in our traffic sources, it keeps showing up in our top 10, and so we're trying to figure it out. We're posting our family activities on there. I mean, that makes sense within that world. Pinterest is a place for people to figure out what to do. And themes, and so many of our shows have very, very clear themes. Next year, I will have figured this out by next year, and I'll write about it.
Yeah, we don't use it, so.
It's also a family platform, so that's why it works for us. Moms are on Pinterest. So if that's people you know are in your audience, it's a good place for it.
Hi, we have a lot of pressure lately from partners who'd like to use our social feeds, either corporate sponsors who are asking us to mention them, or artists with whom we partner who would like us to mention some of their side projects. If anyone could talk about that, help give some guidance.
We definitely experience that, especially from our sponsors. We just got a new sponsor for one of our large productions, and they are very interested in that. What we've come across is that because they are not a title sponsor, they are an above title sponsor, we don't have to mention them every time we say the title of the show. But in the spirit of the new collaboration, we are attempting to find ways to bring them in more often, which includes really making sure they're in any video end cards that we have, and also tagging them in a number of posts, but not promising a specific number. But yes, we do end up with some push on that. And we have to iterate back to them that we want to make sure that the content is bringing people in as well, and that doing too many posts that clouded up the message can make that difficult. So some compromise involved.
And I dig my heels in and say no. I just, I've gotten really comfortable saying no, it doesn't align with our content strategies, and that's where I leave it.
Hi, I'm very impressed with all three of your programs and how you manage the digital. Can you talk a little bit about your process for getting that established, or how long it took you, or partners that you worked with? Because it's like, boy, I want to start doing this tomorrow, but I know that's unrealistic.
Sure. We're clients of Capacity Interactive, so we do work with them quite a bit. But it also, I feel like I've been doing this job as digital marketing manager for about a year, and I feel like I now am on my feet. So I don't think it's something that happens overnight. I mean, this process that we've gone through is something that has to work for you. So you're going to have to customize whatever it is you choose to follow to make it work for you and your organization and who you have and all of that. So I think it takes time.
It took me a while. I've been in my job for 10 years. I would say that it took me 5 maybe to really, really figure it out. And 10 years ago was kind of the beginning of social media really coming. I remember a presentation we did to our organization, which was hey everybody, this is what Facebook is. So I had a real learning curve with that. And for us, it was also figuring out, it was clarifying stories. So it goes back to the larger organization for me. I think that we really started to get good at it when instead of doing a small group of well, what are our stories, we started looking to the larger organization and looking to mission and clarifying all of that language. That helped to inform it. So don't do it yourself.
That's good advice.
Hi. So our organization presents basically only touring acts. We don't really have the opportunity to create the content from the get-go in-house. So we rely heavily on the artists to come and just give us really great content. And I loved your example because we, in the marketing department, have found ourselves receiving images that just will not work. Blurry, just really bad content. So I just wanted to pick your brain about maybe some creative approaches to creating marketing material when you don't have any.
I build in a little bit of budget every year for when I get that photograph. And I've built relationships with photographers in some different places around the world who I can call and I can go to reshoot, because when that's what you start with and that's the very beginning of it, we're not magicians. Sometimes we've got to get a little bit of it going. It also, depending on your brand, your illustrator can help with that. I have an amazing collaboration with the illustrator who we work with, and so I didn't reshoot that show. Instead, he drew that show, and those were elements that I could use and then animate for campaigns from there.
We have something over here.
Hi, it definitely seems like more emphasis is put on Facebook and Instagram. Can you talk a little bit about Twitter? I personally would love it if we could just get off Twitter. I work at a theater, and I just feel like I feel like we haven't quite figured out the magic of Twitter, so it just seems like we're wasting our time, and I would love to get off it, but then I'm told probably shouldn't yet. So if you could talk a little bit about Twitter, maybe some secrets into, making our time on Twitter worth it, or not. Thanks.
I've experienced a lot of those same challenges. I feel our audience is not on Twitter. For us, the folks that are on there that we're interacting with more are other community partners, and that's kind of been where we found the most success. But if your audience truly isn't on there, I kind of wouldn't hesitate to decide to not do it anymore. I think we've been talking this whole time about resources, and if you're not seeing a return on investment from something, and it doesn't matter what it is, don't hesitate to make that call on your own. But we're still there just because I have so many of the same feelings you do about leaving. But we're using it more specifically to connect with other people in our community.
Exactly what Amanda said.
I'll just add that we are doing the same as she just mentioned, but we're also using it to communicate with our audiences. They are posting pictures or talking about how their experience was that night, and we can respond directly to them, which is another way for us to have that conversation. It's also a second place to share your content. So we are sending people through their links to get to our publications and places like that.
Hi, my name is Marcus Cumby, and I actually work at Facebook. Hi. First off, I want to applaud all of you, the way you guys think about just sort of planning, and also the way that you utilize the creative, and also love the hack. I think it's just really, really amazing, and I want to really applaud you guys for thinking creatively with Facebook and Instagram. So, and yes, also that was me on the leaderboard. I apologize. My bad on that. With the just general, Facebook, Instagram, I think you guys are doing amazing work. I'm very curious if you've thought about Instagram stories as the next outlet for telling your story.
Yeah, we just experimented over the last couple of days. We have a performance opening tonight. Back in Charlotte, and we're working with a Broadway singer for one of the ballets, and he has a really great presence. So we allowed him to take over our stories on Instagram, and we've done a lot of that with our artists. So it's been more takeovers and allowing them to really create the content themselves, but that's gone really well for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been experimenting, but not enough yet. It's definitely something we're tapping our toes into. Yeah.
We've dipped our toe in. There's much further to go for us.
And it definitely seems like a good place for more casual content too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. You can get away with a lot there.
Hi, thank you guys so much for this amazing talk. I feel like all three of you are doing such a great job of creating kind of disruptive content, of like doing something new, breaking the rules a little bit, trying something, and then using what you learn to recreate over and over to gain more success. It's amazing. I wonder, when it comes to presenting a project like this to key stakeholders, it can be really scary for them. They're all asking you, what's it going to look like? Know exactly what is it going to look like? How do you deal with that and have that conversation and make sure people still feel safe when you have a little bit more control?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I try to seed it. I try to show a little bit along the way. I find that in my organization, we are collaborative to a degree that is sometimes terrifying. And everybody really feels the need to be part of processes. So I try to take little pieces of things that I'm working on and release them internally in my organization as I'm going, so that by the time that we get to the end of the process, it's not a surprising thing that they're seeing. I build buy-in, sometimes over months.
I was just going to say, social media is a really good place to fail small and fail quickly. So something good to remind them of is that if you embark on a first experiment of something, it's not as big of a risk as if you were to spend lots of money on a TV spot that's going to run for an entire month and you have no way to adjust from there. It just is what it is. Whereas Facebook or other social medias, you see, like I said before, all of those analytics right away. You get feedback immediately, and you can either change your tune or lean in further.
Hi, what is your experience in terms of balancing casual content in email versus more like ticket driving messaging, specifically for email in terms of what you choose to put in email versus what you don't?
We are investing a lot right now in non-sales email. That is, oh, thanks. And like need that encouragement because it's not an instinct, right? Like I still get up in the morning sometimes and I'm like, great, I'm ready to tell the people to buy the tickets, and that's not what actually they want to hear. I mean, that's also part of a donor strategy, and that's really important in our organization right now, is trying to figure out how to do more institutional marketing versus programmatic marketing.
We're at the beginning of analyzing our email actually right now, and the one thing I will say we've already started shifting to is trying to add more value to each email we do send. So it's having something have a lot more resources about a show, a lot more interesting, funny, relevant stuff about the program, as opposed to just here's the description, you should buy some tickets. So trying to embed it that way.
And we reuse a lot of content and reuse a lot of video content because that performs so well in our emails. But I will say I'm not very good at doing emails that are not super salesy. I'm still trying to get comfortable with that.
Hi, I very frequently have to market to 14 to 25-year-olds, and we market with Facebook typically to their parents. But in marketing directly towards them, I've been encouraged to do Snapchat, and I'm old, so I don't understand Snapchat quite as well as as my stepkids do. So I'm curious if any of you are successful using Snapchat, and if not, how are you marketing to these teens into the college years?
We're mostly reaching people through Instagram right now. We have not stepped into Snapchat. Not only because that's not technically our main demographic, but even with our educational programs that are for teens, we're aiming more for their parents. So Instagram is definitely where we're headed, as well as Facebook with targeted audiences.
We're not using Snapchat because we're dealing with parents pretty exclusively. We actually at the New Victory have a real commitment that we don't market to kids, which is also where that tops out age-wise, because within your range, from what I've learned, is that 14, 15, 16, they're still listening to what their parents are saying, and then they hit that and it's over. There's no, they're making their decisions after that age. Although fascinatingly at the New Victory, they'll skip us for their high school years, and then they'll start coming back again in their college years, which is an interesting behavioral thing for you to think about.
We are using Snapchat. For that same age group there, I think Instagram and Instagram Stories does really well for us, but we are using some Snapchat. We have an audition tour program and a summer intensive that is very similar in age range. And I also am not the best Snapchat user myself. I just had to download it and force myself to figure it all out. But I asked my dancers. They have been fantastic at teaching me, but I'm also never afraid to turn it over to someone else. You were talking earlier about like failing small, and I feel like Snapchat is an awesome place to fail small because it's going to be a 24-hour shelf life. And I just let the people who know how to use the platform use it. Whenever we have our summer intensive students in, they can fill out an application to do a Snapchat takeover for a day, and then they promote it out to their followers. So we're getting those same folks coming back to us, and then they show their day as a Snapchat takeover.
Cool. I think we might, are we out of time?
We need one last question.
Sure, okay.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kina, and I work at Seattle Rep, and we're a theater company. And to the Snapchat comment, this past year we've been using Snapchat filters where you can build your own geo filter, and that's been really wonderful for us for events, especially with like teen programming. and we've seen a lot of success in that, and it's cheap. For one night, it's like less than $20. This past month, we did Public Works Seattle, and it was just for 4 shows, and we had it running the whole weekend. And what's great is that Snapchat, at the end of the weekend, sends you back all of, what is that called?
Oh, the analytics.
Analytics,
Yeah.
yes. And so, yeah, it's been really successful, and it's cheap. And so if you guys do have the ability to do that, it is successful. And we're fortunate enough that we have in-house graphic designers to really customize what that geofilter looks like.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. That was fantastic.